Okay, great. So as you can see, it's one of the finest high school parking lots in the world. Oh, and right here's the library, where you can find books and tables and chairs and all that stuff. State-of-the-art computers, at least if the art was 10 years ago. And friendly librarians. Not super bright always, but friendly. Oh, wait, everyone. It's Justin Foley and Zach Dempsey, star basketball players here at Liberty High. Hey, Justin, where's my bike? Justin stole my bike.
What the fuck? What are you doing?
I'm giving our new foreign exchange students a tour. Figured they should know who owns the school, right, you guys?
Clay.
Right, moving on. Where were we? Right, the auditorium. Oh, but before we go, I want to show you something super cool, okay?
Clay couldn't help.
Look at these lockers. They all look alike, right? Not this one. This one is special. It belonged to a girl who killed herself.
Clay, come on.
You see all these "Don't kill yourself" posters up on the wall? They weren't up before. They put them up because she killed herself. And why did she do it? Because the kids here treated her like shit.
Jensen, that's enough.
But no one wants to admit it, so they paint over the bathrooms and put up a memorial because that's the kind of school that this is. Everyone is just so nice until they drive you to kill yourself. And sooner or later, the truth will come out. It's gonna come out. Right, Tony? Right? You know the truth.
Clay, I think you should come with me right now. Get to class, everybody. All you, get to class.
Welcome to Liberty High.
Let's go.
Okay. New game.
Well, hello there. This is Marty Martin, everyone. I am the Geeknik. Welcome to my show again. This is episode 4 right now. And I actually have a special guest on my show, fellow commentator named Don. Don, introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Don. Good friend of Chris. And yeah, I just wanted to join this discussion. I like what he does. And I'm just here to talk pop culture and stuff. So I'm excited to see what we're going to discuss today.
All right, awesome. So, everybody, I announced earlier on the previous episode that the next few episodes I will be covering the controversial show 13 Reasons Why, because I feel like it's definitely a series that it still needs to be discussed, and people are not really talking about it as much because they don't want to. So, yeah, right now we're going to give a little critique on the movie. What are the pros and cons? What did we like or what did we hate about the movie? So
show. It's a show.
Yeah, oh, so sorry. The show. Yeah. So so the premise of the show is about and help me along here, Don, if I trip up some stuff. Okay. So there's this girl, and she commits suicide, and she leaves behind some tapes that she recorded, 13 tapes. And each tape is about one person, right? Each tape covers.
Yeah, each tape is about a specific student in her life that had an influence supposedly on why she killed herself. Hence, 13 Reasons Why. Each person has a reason as to why she committed suicide.
Yeah, and then from there, we actually get to know. It's a non-linear story per se, because it goes back and forth from the past and then to the present. Sometimes it can get a little confusing with the editing. I would get confused at times too. That's one of the negatives I have regarding it. But one of the things it also covers, rape.
Wow, why you got to say it with the like that?
I mean, like, I gotta put the emphasis on it, you know. You gotta put the emphasis.
Yeah, no,
it
definitely covers some heavy issues for sure. Definitely covers issues of sexual assault, violence in general between teens. Just kind of the whole conversation is just about sex and what's appropriate. and of course, obviously, suicide itself. So
Yeah. So
yeah.
so we just explained the premise. So we're gonna continue more on the characters and on the story. So right now we're gonna give our own critiques on it, state the pros and cons right now. So Don, I'll start with you. What did you like about the show?
Oh well, actually, I hate this show.
Mm-hmm.
I actually really hate this show. But it's weird because maybe I should start with what I do like before I just start trashing it. So what I like, Catherine Langford, who plays Hannah Baker. I think she's a really good actress. I think she does a good job at kind of playing the melancholy teenager, in my opinion. Some people might not think she's that great of an actress, but honestly, at a certain point, she was the only reason why I was watching, because there was a lot of characters that I didn't really like. And so I like her performance. I like the performance of Kate Walsh as her mom. I feel like she does a really good job playing, a distressed mother, especially dealing with something so difficult as having your child die. I feel like some actors and actresses, might go a little over the top with that, and I feel like she did a good job. Derek Luke playing I think he was playing the principal,
the
counselor. He did a really good job, really good actor. So I would say most of my positives have to do with the acting. But I hate the show, and the reason why I hate the show is because I find it to be exploitative. I think it really kind of takes these very, very serious issues and almost like kind of Quentin Tarantino's it. And I feel like these are not situations that should be treated that way. I feel like some situations are just like, oh, wow, look at how terrible kids treat each other. And like we already understand, like we know high school kids, like a lot of us went through high school drama or even like early college drama, or just we all know what it's like, and we know how cruel people can be, and we know people who have committed suicide or have dealt with it or know someone else who has dealt with these things. But I feel like the show a lot of times kind of takes like magnify certain things too much, and I don't know how quickly we want to start talking about like big spoilers, but for anyone who wants to watch it, pay no mind to what I'm saying. You can skip forward.
Actually, I forgot to clarify it, but like everybody knows who have watched my show. Disclaimer: my podcast is filled with spoilers, so just to let you know that because of that, there's going to be spoilers, riddled with spoilers in this episode. So
yeah,
if you haven't seen 13 Reasons Why, do not watch this. If you really don't care, you don't mind, then stay tuned, all right? But yeah, just letting you know from then on, we're going to start spoiling it.
Yeah, exactly. And so, honestly, the ending of season 1, which really just kind of ends up showing, poor, gosh, I already forgot the character's name. I need to stay connected to her name or else I'm not going to... Oh, Hannah Baker. So Hannah Baker, she commits suicide in a very graphic and sadly realistic way. And I don't really want to go too in deep with that because I know some people might have a hard time, people might have gone through that. But, it involves cutting herself, and she kind of bleeds out and dies. And the scene is so focused on the details as to how she does it that it concerned me, as an adult, to think that there's children that, they're children that are dealing with these issues, and they're watching another child, or at least a fictional child, do this to themselves in such a, I swear, like the cameras are like on her arms as she's like cutting them, and the blood is very convincing. They definitely did a good job at making it feel real, but I kind of felt like at what cost, because I feel like there's a lot of well done movies and shows that deal with these things without having to show us, the nitty gritty details of how it works. And I felt like it didn't need to go there for it to be effective. I feel like it could have been really simple. Like, it could have been, I'm not going to necessarily go on 50 different ways that the show could have ended, but, it could have been something like, Kate Walsh walks in and, finds that she's already dead, and maybe you could have issues, you could have like blood in there or something. But I think it was just kind of watching it happen from the very first step to the point that she's dead. In my opinion, it was too much. I don't need to see that. And I think most people don't need to see that. And I think it could be a bad influence on suicidal teens that are watching, because it's one thing to know about someone who's struggling with something like you, and there's another thing to watch a step by step on how to end your life the way that she ended her life. And that's kind of how I felt. Now, however, I'm not going to act like kids are dumb. There's a lot of kids that will watch that and not at all copy what she does. So I'm not saying that like this show is out there just causing people to do it, but people who go through those things and might be in a deeper, like a deeper tunnel of mental illness, sometimes they have a hard time disassociating, from that. And so they might, I don't know if I use the right term there, but they might look at it and be like, you know what, that's exactly what I'm going through. And it looks like she's at peace with this situation. You know what? I think maybe there's something in there for me. And I feel like that's a dangerous place, because I think the fact that it is marketed towards teens and it is clearly seeking out a demographic that really relates to this stuff, it can be a slippery slope. In that it's like, how far can you go? And I'm sure, we can get into talking about what they do in season 2 and stuff like that. But I don't know, that really rubbed me the wrong way. I felt like there were a lot of characters, like her friends, like each tape I feel like was about someone that I hated.
Right. Yeah. Same.
And they didn't always have a reason to be hated. Sometimes there were okay people, like the main guy, Clay, who is trying to find out why, he's trying to find out the 13 reasons why. He's trying to figure out who's on these tapes. He's looking around, investigating, like he's a, detective, and he's getting in everybody's face and, always like trying to be like this white knight for her. And he's like always being like really inappropriate about it, just getting up in people's face, causing all this ruckus, and just being like really unlikable, and always mean, always pissy, always like, I understand his friend died, but like, come on, can we write a character to be a little more likable, especially if we're going to follow him for the whole thing? And that's the part that really got me the most. I was like, okay, so the most likable character is dead. And we also know that she's going to die, so it's this tragedy. And then all these other people around her who are supposed to be her friends or the people that support her are all trash.
Right.
And so that, for me, made it hard to watch. But I will say this. It is a well-paced show, and that's why I stayed watching. Because they did a pretty good job at moving from person to person. And at a certain point, you invested so much time in it that you need to find out how it ends, So I'll give it that. It gave me a reason to watch the next episode. But I can't say that I always enjoyed every episode.
Right.
So that's the gist of how I felt about season 1 specifically.
Yeah, I could. One thing, and I agree with you regarding the characters. I hated 90% of the characters. And a lot of it, not only is it because of what they did in the story, but the thing is, when I was going to college, I knew those types of people.
Right.
That's another thing that made me angry, because like if I like the character Clay, I knew a guy from college that was just like him. And like he was a friend of mine, and this friend, he would always come to me for advice, regarding girls and everything. And I'm like, wow, dude, you're so oblivious. With this character Clay, I think he's a little more
What would make him oblivious, and like how would that relate to Clay?
Well, like for example, remember like Clay whenever because Hannah liked Clay. She really liked him.
Oh yeah, very obviously.
Just straightforward, but Clay, he didn't even like pay attention to that. He didn't realize that until like it took him a while to catch on. Because a lot of that has to do because he is a shy guy. He has
Yeah.
insecurities, and
Hmm.
when you're
Well, I would say it
insecure,
was more of that too. It wasn't so much that he didn't know, but his insecurities were keeping him
hmm
from really moving forward. Because there was a point. I'm pretty sure there was a point well before she died that he had an idea. He had a pretty good idea, and he kind of let his whatever his problems were, they got in the way.
hmm yes, because with insecurities, one thing about it, they get comfortable. They want
Right.
comfort, so the more they comfort themselves, the more they shelter themselves, the less they pay attention to things.
People close themselves off.
Right, exactly, and that makes them socially awkward, and it makes them, in a way, unaware of
Right. And
things.
we've all been there.
Right, exactly. Now, the big criticism regarding the character Clay, I hate Clay because
Mm.
if you really think about this, so like for the viewers, you guys remember, Clay wasn't really friends with Hannah. He wasn't really friends with her. Like when he would tell her parents, like, oh, like, we were friends, kinda. Well, it wasn't until later
Oh,
on.
that's true, huh?
Yeah, later on in the episodes, he started saying, "Oh, she was my friend" and everything. When they were
Yeah,
just really
but this is the other thing though. I don't. How true was it though that they weren't friends, because they still, they had their moments in the movie theater and all that stuff, and she's all, like they were good enough friends, I think, for him. I feel like he downplayed it really early on.
Mhm.
Like I feel like he was not lying, but for some reason he was really withholding a lot, because as we hear the tapes and stuff, and she starts talking about, oh, like Clay, you missed your chance, and now I'm dead, and stuff like that. Like, I feel like that we found out there was more, right? There was
Right.
like more to their friendship, and for some reason, he kind of keeps that to himself, and I don't know why he does that. I don't
Right.
remember. I probably need to rewatch it, but it was a
Right.
little weird to me, that he's kind of disconnected, and then he'd get super connected, and then I can't believe she liked me. It's just weird.
Right.
It's really weird.
Yeah, the reason why it's weird, and this is another reason why I hate him, and this was where one of the controversial things about it comes in, even in life in general regarding suicide. I just saw it on Facebook actually today. Somebody posted a comment on Facebook saying, "Nobody cares about depression until someone kills themselves." And
Yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that.
so, like with Clay, the reason why he gets so passionate about Hannah Baker's death, it's not because he knew her like they were close friends. It was because he felt guilt.
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say the same thing.
Yeah, that's really why he's mad about it. He's not really mad about her death. He's mad at the things that he didn't do. Or he feels bad for the person. He sympathizes the person.
And that is a little bit where I have a problem with it, because it really is a story of guilt.
Mhm.
And it is a story that doesn't seem, it's not fair.
Right.
Because each one of these people, now there are some people, like, we'll talk about it later, but, there are the issues of sexual assault. And so, there are some people that you are directly responsible for the choices that this poor girl made. But then there are other things where it's like, okay, like whatever, you kind of made her sad here and whatever, and you made her mad here. Like, that's not a good enough reason to kill yourself. And you shouldn't feel guilty that just because, you didn't do A, B, C, that you're responsible for someone taking their own life. And somehow, at the end, right, he's like, we all killed Hannah Baker. And that's when I was like, okay, hold on a second. No, we all didn't kill Hannah Baker.
Right.
Okay? Hannah Baker killed herself. And look, I 100% sympathize with people who have depression. I have depression. I understand. However, some things you kind of have to take, like if we're going to talk about her like a real person, you know what I mean? Like, some things you're going to have to take responsibility for. You
Right.
know, like if I put myself in that situation, decided, you know what, I'm going to jump in front of this truck. Now, I might angrily say that there's 13 people that have pushed me here. You could, people say a lot of hurtful things, when they're at the end of their rope.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that those other 13 people would be that convinced that it was their fault. And I would have a big problem if one of those 13 people went around harassing the other 12 and trying to like guilt them, be like, you did this too. That's not how it works. So in that sense, I was just like, okay, like this story's interesting, but like this is not at all the way that it should be handled. And I don't even know if that's how this really would be handled, because I feel like there's sometimes where Clay's talking, and if he was talking to me, I'd be like, you know what? I'm gonna punch you right in the face, and don't you ever talk to me again.
Exactly.
But like they just let him hang around all the time, and he just gets in their face, and you did this, and you did that. I'd be like, you man, shut the up.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, sorry. Go back to what you were saying, because
No, yeah.
I'm pretty sure we were saying the same thing.
No, yeah. What I was just saying was that he's just mad because he's guilty. He just feels he feels bad for what he didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you remember,
which wasn't a lot. You have to remember, it reveals that it wasn't a whole lot. He didn't do anything super bad, and yet he's carrying this guilt, like he told her to do this to herself or something, and that never happened. You actually end up finding out that he is one of the better friends. Yeah. And I can understand this. I can understand feeling guilty, like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know. But I don't relate to going on a crusade.
Right.
And I think that was the part that made him very unlikable, that all of a sudden, instead of just wanting to find out what happened, he went on this crusade.
Right.
That I'm going to, did he expose anyone? I don't remember.
Ooh, Clay?
Yeah.
The jock, the Bryce.
Yeah, except Bryce though was actually a bad guy.
Right, yeah, because he confessed, and that's when Clay went in because he was getting weed from him, but he wanted to confront him, and he just...
So for people who don't know, Bryce is a character who kind of he plays on the baseball team, and towards the end of season 1, he ends up raping Hannah Baker, and it's really sad, and so he is actually the real breaking point for her. Mm-hmm. And he's definitely the one that deserves like a huge percentage of the blame, way over the other people. So yeah, anytime that they were like really picking on him, it's like, of course, this guy deserves it. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. But then there are just some people where it was like, okay, like, you were mean that time. Like, okay. Like, you got to move on from certain things. And I feel like it was not a story. It was a story that really encouraged being, like, super vindictive. And trying to get revenge. And trying to... So, I don't know. I think that's probably the biggest reason why I had, like, such strong reactions to his character, I think. Because I think I would have rather seen him be a little more curious, a little more open, and just not so guilty. I think we still could have gotten a really good show if it wasn't about guilt tripping, because because she's the one trying to make them feel guilty.
Right.
You know what I mean? She's the one doing it. We don't need another person doing it.
Right.
And so I think it should have been more like, hey, like, yo, these tapes are coming out. And then maybe when Clay finds out like when the Bryce stuff happens, like, all right, now it's time to turn up and be the Hulk, but
right.
Not, yeah. And I think they just kind of jumped the gun there. It's a very emotional show. It's a little soap opera-ish at times.
Right.
You get what you get.
That's really what it is. It's a soap opera. And soap operas, they get you addicted to it.
Yeah, and for better or for worse, too. Sometimes you're addicted and it's not good.
Right.
But because like usually everything's like a cliffhanger or a twist, you're like, I have to watch this.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, I think off of Clay though, moving past Clay, that was the kind of the overriding message too. Like, I understood there was truth to the idea that a village of people or a community of people can cause the death of someone, like indirectly. And I think that's what they were getting to, right?
Right.
They're getting to, people are picked on in school. A lot of people turn their head. A lot of people are talking behind someone's back. And the concept is when all of this stuff comes together, that can lead to someone going over the edge. That is true.
Right.
And the tapes on her part, I think she got a little too much, and this is actually something they address in season 2, but they gave her a little too much, I can't think of the word. They kind of acted like what she did was a good thing, and it wasn't.
Like justifiable.
It wasn't, because she decided to make these defaming tapes that just spoke poorly of people, and sometimes some of the things that she tore down people for weren't worth putting in a tape. You know, because especially some of them were like her female friends and stuff like that. So it turned into like this expose that didn't feel constructive, and it felt more like, hey, guess what? I'm killing myself, and not only am I going to say that you did it, but I'm going to start talking about some bad things that you did and make you feel real bad so that you can feel guilty for my death, because this is the reason why I'm killing myself. All that to say, that also makes her character a little bit more realistic, because we know that she wasn't in the best mind state.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, because she has serious mental. She was struggling with a mental disorder, definitely. Anxiety.
Oh, she was
big time.
Yeah.
The only character that really made me interested in the show, and the only one that I really liked, and they did make him likable, was Tony, Clay's best friend, played by Christian Navarro.
The Hispanic dude.
Yeah.
He was a really good guy. But you also remember, he was actually Hannah's good friend.
Yeah.
He was the real friend to Hannah.
Mm-hmm.
And as a matter of fact, he was such a good friend to her that she was the one who gave him all the tapes.
Yeah.
And I need to refresh my memory. How did the tapes initially start going out? Because he had them.
She started recording them, like, she already had them set up because she was going to kill herself. She had it all prepared. And she didn't explain to him what were the tapes for.
Oh, but she had him put them on Clay's porch.
Yeah, well, at first
or did he do that on his own?
What he did, he gave the tapes to everybody. Everybody got their own copy. Because remember, she asked him, like, can you make copies of these?
Oh,
so he ended up making copies and gave it to everybody else, and then he gave those to Clay to listen to. Another thing about Clay, because I know we keep beating on this guy so much, but I always hate it when he's like, I can't listen to the tapes anymore. I just can't. I need to stop. It's like, come on, you didn't even get to your tape.
Okay, and then that was the thing. Then he gets to his tape and he acts so surprised. She was picking on everybody, and somehow he acted like he was about to be exempt.
Right.
And I did not. And like, you could see it on his face. Like, oh man. Like, I don't know. Like, for some reason he thought he was going to be exempt from the entire situation, which also made me hate him more, because it's like, wait a minute. So you really thought you were better than everybody.
Right.
You really did. And I did like that happened, though, because, like, okay, Hannah put him in its place from Beyond the Grave. But if we could jump to, did you watch season 2?
I'm actually in the beginning of season 2, but I already read the spoilers and everything.
Okay. So I finished season 2, and there was a scene. Clay kind of starts having issues where he starts to imagine Hannah is with him, and he's talking to her, and he has a moment, an epiphany, where he realizes that what she did was wrong. Mm-hmm. And he kind of points at her and tells her that you're not a good person for what you did. And the funny part is, you know, she's a good actress, and she, you know, she knows she's playing like a vision, but you have that moment where you feel like she understood what she did. And I liked that moment because I felt like everyone was ignoring it. Mm-hmm. Because that's not okay. It's not okay to hurt yourself and then make all this media to hurt other people. That's not okay.
Right.
And I had a feeling I didn't want, especially young people, I didn't want young people thinking that that's okay. Suicide is especially not okay. Self-harm is not okay. But especially if you're doing that and then you're also trying to hurt other people, even if it's emotionally, mm-hmm. that's just not right.
Right.
You know, and no matter how much pain they put you through, you don't understand the damage that you can cause to other people, and you might have other people killing themselves, you know.
Right.
Do you want to be one of their 13 reasons why?
Right.
You know, because that's kind of what she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked that moment because he tried so hard to excuse every single little thing that she said and did, and it hit him. It was like, wait a minute.
Yeah.
These tapes, this is not right.
Right, like,
and of course, you know,
that's not gonna fly.
Yeah, and of course, you know, the show had to continue anyways, you know, and he had to, you know, continue to, you know, finish the thing, which was going after Bryce. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you know, so I liked that moment because I feel like that was a moment that the audience was having too. Mm-hmm. You know, because it's hard, right? It's hard to like let that go. It's hard to finish the season and just be like, well, good old Hannah. Like, no, that's not what happened.
Right. Because again, like, the only two things that got me interested in the show, forget about everybody else. Okay, like Tony, that's my man. I love Tony. Tony talked sense. You know, he always was the logical one. And if you notice, she never said anything negative about Tony.
No, that dude was cool. How could you?
Exactly. I mean, Tony is such a lovable guy.
No, he was a good dude.
Yeah, and I mean, I just loved it in that there's multiple scenes when he's telling Tony, like, I can't listen to it, and then Tony's like, did you listen to yours?
So good.
Like, Tony's basically like, are you kidding me? Like, you're getting bothered by this?
No, exactly, seriously. And I did like that aspect too. It was kind of like there were a lot of moments where I feel like the message was like, get your head out of the dirt.
Right.
You know, and stop acting like this stuff is like you're above knowing about this stuff, because these are things that are important, you know, in a much less movie-esque way it happens in real life. Mm-hmm. You know, and so in some ways he was like playing both, like, oh, I'm being really empathetic, and in other cases he's like, nah, like, F all these people.
Right.
So
exactly.
it was really interesting how they did that.
Right. And
now,
then
however, though, oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, he was thinking about killing himself too, when he was like envisioning like what he could have done, you know, the signs
mm-hmm.
that, you know, she told him and everything. Mm-hmm. Like when she said, like, you know, get out of here, leave, and then she said part of me wanted him to stay. And like,
oh yeah. And then he felt bad. But okay, so, you know, and to ground it all, you know, in real life, you know, I think suicide is a terrible thing. I completely understand if someone pulled a Hannah Baker and they did all of that. People are hurt, and hurt people hurt people.
Right.
But that doesn't mean that a narrative painting them as the hero is accurate.
Right.
And that's what I felt season 1 did. And I think season 2, they tried to do a little better job at just making her more of a flawed person and less of a pure, like she could do no wrong kind of person. Because that doesn't feel real. You
right.
know? And it feels, well, I'm off of that. You know, we all get what I'm trying to say.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It was all about Tony, and I just wanted to see Bryce just get caught. That's really what I wanted to see. I said, like, forget about everybody else. Let's get this jerk.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and so then that moves into the issue of sexual assault.
Right, exactly.
And if okay, at the beginning, does anyone take like revealing pictures of her
Yeah,
early on?
the stupid photographer kid Tyler.
So there's this photographer kid named Tyler that people have a hard time with because he's the school photographer and he always finds himself kind of being creepy, and so people start feeling like he's a voyeur, and it's hard to tell if he is or if he isn't, throughout the season. So that's right. So he took a picture of Hannah, and what was the picture of?
It was her with another girl, and they were having a intimate sexual moment, and he's looking through the window at her house and takes a picture of them. It was, what's her name? The Asian girl.
Her name was
Gosh, what was her name? I actually have her name. Dang it. Wow. Oh, wow. I totally had it. I feel so stupid right now. It's gonna come to me, but yeah.
I'm gonna look her up while you're talking about it.
Yeah. It's one of Hannah's former best friends. And the thing is too, I just hated how everybody was just dropping her. Like just dropping her.
Who?
Hannah. Like just like everybody, like that girl. What's her name? The one that hit the stop sign.
Yes.
She never wanted to talk to her. Like since then. And then, what's her name?
And this is someone who hit. There's a scene where, just so people know, there's a scene where someone hits a stop sign because I believe they were under the influence.
Yeah, she was drunk.
So there was a drunk driver who hit a stop sign, and then that one ran into Hannah Davis, or was Hannah in the car with her?
Hannah was in the car right there in the
Hannah
passenger
Baker, I'm sorry,
seat.
not Davis.
Yeah.
So Hannah Baker was in the car in the passenger seat driving with this person who was drunk. That drunk person hits the stop sign, and all of a sudden, that drunk person decided she didn't want to be with Hannah anymore.
Yeah, because Hannah wanted to call the cops. Like basically, the girl just she wanted to do it like a hit and run, basically, because she was gonna get in trouble because she was driving her dad's car. Yeah, and she got mad because Hannah was actually wanted to do the right thing, so she just drove off, and then unfortunately, a friend of Clay at the party, he leaves the party and he's drunk too. I think they insinuated that he's drunk or not, but he was driving home, and because the stop sign wasn't there, he got into a car accident.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, and that killed him. So then the girl, she felt guilty because of that. Because she heard about, him dying. That's why when Clay confronted her...
Courtney is her name.
That's her name.
The girl that... Courtney is the name of the girl who Hannah was having an intimate moment with.
Right. Yeah, so now I remember them. So, yeah, so she feels guilty because of that, so...
So we deal with exploitation in that, we're dealing with a kid, right, who clearly gets a bit of a thrill in finding people in their most candid and intimate moments, takes a picture of these two women, girls, really, because they're playing kids essentially,
right,
and trying to remember. So that kind of starts to set off that whole issue, right? We start talking about what is appropriate behavior between men and women, and we're immediately going right out the gate with something clearly inappropriate.
Right.
And that ends up kind of turning into this sort of the kind of the negative boys club culture that exists when you're dealing with Bryce and his friends, and you're starting to see how they deal with the girls in their lives. And you start to realize that people like Bryce and those around him are not the most respectful of women. And you start to get you start to feel a little uneasy. And when Bryce is alone with Hannah in his hot tub with no one else to be around, we all know what's going to happen, because Bryce has shown this shady side right throughout the thing, because he assaulted Hannah's friend.
Right.
What was her name?
Which one?
Hannah's friend.
The black girl?
Jessica.
Yeah, Jessica.
So Jessica was raped by Bryce.
She was intoxicated.
At a party. She was intoxicated. She didn't have the ability to consent. I believe the way that they showed it, she didn't even really know what was happening to her.
Right, she was confused.
I don't even think she was just confused. I think that's how drunk she was. I think she was almost unconscious.
Yeah, she was.
Which makes it so much worse. And so, we have that situation. We already know the type of person he is. So when we see Hannah in the hot tub with him later towards the end of the season, she's alone, we're like, oh my gosh, like, get out of it's like Jaws, like the blood's in the water, and she doesn't even know. So that happens. And honestly, that scene, it felt like a bit much, but I felt like, especially today, in a culture where so many people turn a blind eye to sexual assault and rape and stuff, it was interesting, to see a character play, a high school person, and kind of realistically showing what. See, I don't want to say what those people are like, because, like, who is those people, right?
Right.
But what I mean is men who do that and young boys who do that, I felt like they painted a good picture of what someone like that would be, a victimizer, a predator. And it's sad that you're able to see someone who's just going to the same school as them, just looking around, and you find out that he's a really rich guy who feels like he's kind of above the law and above everyone, and he's just abusing the connections and the power he has. And he sees Hannah and he's like, I like her and I want her. Forget about consent. Know, like, wouldn't anyone want to be with me? I'm the star baseball player, blah, blah, blah. And so, you start really seeing, and you start seeing his friends around him kind of, just go along with who he is. And especially in season 2, he's just, this is Bryce. This is what Bryce does. And it's sad.
Mm-hmm. I'd say Bryce and Justin are the worst characters, because Justin, he let Bryce rape his own girlfriend.
Yes, and so then the interesting story with Justin is that Justin has a very interesting return in season 2. But the interesting thing about Justin, are you sure his name was Justin? Because I know the guy who played Bryce is Justin.
Justin Foley, that's his name.
There you go.
The guy, he came from the abusive family.
Yeah, so that dude, that was interesting to see, because he loved Jessica, and yet he let such a terrible thing happen to her. And I didn't know how to feel. I mean, I was disgusted.
Right.
Like, obviously, it's like, if that's me, it's like, no, I don't care if you're my best friend. Like, I'm beating the crap out of you, because that's never going to happen.
Right.
But see, what that showed, though? That showed the culture that he was around, and the culture that Bryce Walker was a part of and created.
Right.
And I feel like it was showing that, because he was going up to Justin and being like, hey, let me spend some time with her. Like you owe it to me. And then Justin's kind of like lets it happen. So this makes me think, how many times has this happened?
Right.
This is definitely not the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first time situation, you're not going to act like that. And so that part was also kind of scary too. And so that's really what made him an interesting villain, because it was like, okay, not only is this guy doing this stuff, but he has other people enabling him, or he's forcing them to enable him. And he's created this little culture of, like, this little rape culture, essentially.
Right.
Like a little microcosm of it. And so that was interesting to me. And yeah, I feel like they did a better job at handling that situation than the overall suicide situation.
Mm.
I don't know what you think, but
yeah, I think with the suicide, here's where it's kind of messed up with this movie. In a way, you kind of anticipate to see the suicide. because people are like, oh man, I can't wait to see like what happened.
What happens?
Yeah, what
Or
happened?
how she did it.
Right, like are they gonna show it? You know, that I realized that was a messed up part because I was
And
like,
that's actually why I got mad when they showed it. Like when they showed it as explicitly as they did, I was like, oh my gosh, they think this is a payoff? This is not a payoff. This, I feel like I'm watching like some like news footage or something that I shouldn't be watching.
right,
You know, it didn't feel, and it hurt for me to see the character do that to herself, and for us to not really, I feel like it wasn't as emotional as a moment as it could have been for the viewer. It was just like, watch this. Blood. This is what suicide is like. Right. Isn't it crazy? Can you believe that kids do this to themselves on an average of blank blank a day? Yeah. All right. Now here's the credits. And it's like, no. That's not how we want to see this, this subject handled.
Right.
We want, there needs to be a bit of dignity to this, and there's no dignity. I believe there is no dignity in death, and there is no actual dignity in suicide.
No.
But there is a dignity in how you portray such things.
Right.
And I don't feel that they portrayed it in a dignified way. I felt like a much more talented filmmaker, a better writer could have figured out a way to make it hit just as, some of the most scariest, most painful, most emotionally draining scenes I've seen in movies don't show that much.
Right.
You can cause, sometimes it's what you don't see, that really hits you. So I think there could have been a balance between showing us the gory details and just implying what happens, because we know what happens. So that's why, I think that's what we're talking about essentially with, people kind of waiting for that to happen. Because once we got there, it was like, oh, I'm not meaning it in like a disrespectful way, but it's like, oh, it's happening. Oh, right. God. Oh, God. Like, it just got worse and worse. And it's like, I don't know if I want to watch this anymore. It's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
And I want to jump, if you don't mind, I want to jump to season 2 because they do something similar.
Yeah, go right ahead.
And okay, did you have anything else left to say about season 1 there in that situation?
Probably the only thing I had to say about that regarding the suicide part, I think and I think you're right too. I felt like they exploited the film, like regarding the topic. I think they were exploiting it, but a lot of times they had to do that because they wanted to bring people in. I believe this whole entire show was specifically made to start a conversation, to get people talking. Because the way I was watching it, I'm like, wait a minute, there's no way somebody is going to make a TV show this controversial. Like, there has to be something behind it. And one thing that I like that it was good is that for each episode they give a warning notification for people saying like, look, if you're suffering with mental illness or suicidal thoughts, do not watch this.
Yeah, but at the same time, how many people going to pay attention to that?
Right, that's the thing. But it's like,
legally they had to do that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So in a way, because let's say people are criticizing, saying like, oh, teens are watching this, teens are watching that, and the producers are like, well, we put the warning on it, so you can't get mad at us.
Yeah, and in some ways, like I said, that's not really what concerned me the most. I think it was, it was the way it was treated. It was like treating everything that she did as like this heroic thing. And I felt like that was dishonest. I feel like we got to face the whole thing as a tragedy because that's what it was.
Right.
And even if she was, except for the Bryce part, but I really think that everything else is very tragic. And I feel like a lot of times, especially young kids who are dealing, younger people like in high school age, they think, I know how I thought, everything's black and white and everything's in extremes. So, not that there isn't any nuance and that high schoolers don't have any intelligence. It's just that at that age, things are more extreme in the way you think. So, when you see, in a whole episode dissecting a character, that a tape is focusing on, and we see these negative aspects, teens are more going to be like, oh, well, he's worth nothing, and this person's trash, and this person should die, and I wish this person killed themselves instead. It's like real negative.
Right.
And I felt like it should have been more about combating that negativity. You can balance it out. But in season 2, I feel like they really went too far. Because in season 2, we deal with Bryce. And it's a really interesting story because we go back and forth and we find out that Bryce comes from a rich family and his parents aren't really involved in his life, and that him and all his homies had like this really strange like dugout area where like people have possibly been like sexually assaulted, and they take pictures of all the girls that have been in creepy stuff. And and then he, at some point, he straight up confesses to his mom that he raped this girl, and that he goes through the gory details of it, and he acts like, oh, it was a blast. And I'm like, wow, what a monster.
Right.
And
he's a psychopath.
And he's a psychopath. And then he gets like not that big of a sentence because he's a kid still, or like just barely going to be 18 or something, and he's got like rich parents. So anybody can correct me if I got those little details wrong. But basically, he sort of faces the music. And I understand they were also being a little realistic in him getting off. And I think they probably did that because of what happened in that one college incident where that guy who raped a student got like a very, very lenient.
Wasn't it like sentence. 2 years or something?
I think it was less than that. I think we were dealing with months. And so I think that's kind of what they were hinting at, or like kind of trying to address sort of that issue. But honestly, that part was fine. That's not the part I have a beef with. It's afterwards, they decide, you know what? We just went through all of this emotional hell. We put all of you audiences through this. Now Hannah Baker can rest in peace. Now, remember the photograph kid? Let's have him get messed up. And there's a scene where he gets beat up in a bathroom by some bullies who hate him, half beat to death. Like, they grab his head and they slam it in the porcelain sink, and the sink breaks. And then they push him in the stall. And then this guy decides to grab a broomstick and stick it up where places shouldn't be stuck up. And the kid's screaming and everything, and the camera is just lingering on this kid's face while you see a guy with a broomstick behind him, and he's putting a lot of pressure on that broomstick. A lot of pressure on that broomstick. And then he pulls the broomstick out, and guess what they decide to show? What a broomstick looks like after you've done that to somebody. And I couldn't believe it. We had just put Bryce faced whatever he had to face. We just finally put Hannah Baker to rest, and we have an epilogue with some broomstick sodomy. And that's when it hit me. That's when it hit me that I hate the show. Because at that point, I felt like they're just trying to shock us.
Right.
This doesn't feel like good storytelling. It feels like, what can we do to make you go, and it's like, you did that enough, and we found closure, and then you decided, wait a minute, we have another episode left in this deal. Let's do this.
Right.
And then they were trying to, and then really quickly, they're like, yes, now he wants to be a school shooter now, and like, he got his guns and stuff, and he's ready to do this, and he shows up to the school dance, he's ready to blow everybody away. And then Clay finds out, and Clay's like, oh, we can't let another person end up like Hannah. Hold on, this dude's coming to shoot us all up. And then what a normal person should do is call 911, but they don't. Clay's like, I can save him.
Yeah.
So Clay goes out, And he sees this dude with his M16 or whatever assault rifle he's got. And Clay stands in front of him. Oh, man, you don't want to do this. You know, they have the back and forth. And then cool guy, Tony, comes up, driving all fast in his car. As you can hear the cops coming, tells Mr. School Shooter to jump in the car with him. And they drive off. And the show ends with Clay having saved a potential school shooter. That's not how life works.
No, it's not. And like it gets more exaggerated and exaggerated. Like I feel like that's what they do with these teen dramas. It's so dramatic. It's so dramatic. And I think the reason why they make it so dramatic is because that's how teens see it.
Yes, but what bothers me about it is that there's a part of it where they backtrack. Part of it is like, we're trying to give a message to kids. And then the other part is like, well, we're not trying to give that message to kids. And
Right.
it's like, okay, but what are you trying to do? Because now I feel like you're mocking the death of teens now, because now you really think, like in the case of Columbine, that if a friend would have just ran out in front of the AK-47s or whatever weapons they were using, that was just going to stop everything? Because I feel like you're trying to make it look that simple. And I really hope to God that you're not saying that kids should do this for their fellow friends who decide to be school shooters.
Right.
And so I can't tell at which point. Now, what I heard was that they had been planning to do a school shooting plot. But because, you know, every year there is one, but around this time there was a school shooting really close to production, like the timing. And so I heard that they had to switch up, and that's why we get an incomplete school shooter story at the end. But they should have just axed it.
Right.
Just get rid of it, because it was a story about Hannah.
Right.
That's what it was about. It was a story about Hannah. The 13 reasons why were over. It
Right.
was done.
Right.
And then we did this terrible thing to this poor kid for no reason.
Right.
That's where it really lost me.
Right. Yeah, because I wanted to hear your opinion regarding censorship, because I was
Okay.
having a discussion with a friend of mine, and I don't really want to get too political here, but I'm gonna do it anyway because hey, it's my show. I can say whatever I want. Deal with it, viewers. Okay. Yeah, we were talking about freedom of speech, and we were talking about, you know, there's a lot of hypocrisy amongst, you know, conservatives, or like many Republicans. They say that like they're all for freedom of speech. As a conservative, you defend the Declaration of Independence. You're for the Bill of Rights, you know, especially the biggest one, the right to free speech. And you know, and that also applies through freedom of expression too, as well.
Yes.
So they believe in all this freedom stuff, but then they go to these town halls and say like, oh, Bethesda needs to stop making these video games. Quentin Tarantino needs to stop making these movies. Eminem needs to stop making this music right here. It's like, well, wait a minute. It's almost like you don't even believe in what you're preaching. You're saying...
Yeah, but see, that's because, like you said, if we're talking politically, it's all about pushing a specific agenda, whether that be funding or whether that be this or that. So they're not really being honest. Those rights do exist. Like, what's honest is on that paper.
Right.
But politicians, they try to make sure that they are whatever works for their pockets and for their interests and for their agendas, you know. That's really what it comes down to. So that's why I kind of roll my eyes, you know what I mean, when they're like freedom of speech, but then like censor these guys.
Right. Because I was also, this friend I was talking to, when they were talking about, they did this town hall meeting about video games. I think this happened right after the Parkland shooting. And, you know, they were criticizing the video game industry. And my friend, he works at Target. And he said he was rolling his eyes too. He said it disgusts him, like in his stomach, how he said he sees these parents at the town hall calling out video game companies saying that they're violent and why are kids playing these games, when he says, you know, he works at the tech area at Target where they have the video games are, and he was saying like, Marty, do you know how many parents buy GTA 5 for their kids?
Seriously.
Yeah, he says, you know how many parents buy Call of Duty for these kids? And he said, they don't even read the ratings. They don't even read the ratings.
No, they don't. They don't.
Yeah, he said, like, they just buy it for the kids, or these kids get it from grandma or grandpa or from their uncles on
and
Christmas.
then all of a sudden you walk into Timmy's room and he's doing a drive-by on the prostitute.
Exactly. And then even then, I'm pretty sure the parents don't do anything about it. Not until something bad happens. Not until something bad happens.
They're probably like, hey Timmy, what is that game you're playing? That looks violent. Oh, it's not always like that, Mom. Okay, I'm gonna go. You know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so so it's just, it is, and I think that's what I said. I think a lot of it is more parental hypocrisy, in a lot of areas, but.
And the parents are trying to find something to blame. The parents are trying to find something to blame.
Okay, but if we're gonna talk censorship, if we're speaking in the context of the show, I'm not saying that I'm not gonna be out there. I mean, I would never do it anyway, but hypothetically, I'm not gonna be out there like pseudo like picketing, Netflix and being like, hey, like, never watch a Netflix show again because they showed, this suicide scene, or, I'll never, I'm not paying any money until they clean up their act. Like, no. Make it like, have every episode have a suicide scene if you want. Like, that's weird and pretty gross, but right. I'm not like, you do what you do. My issue is more that I feel like storytelling is a shared experience. And when I am telling you a story, I'm not doing it only for me.
Right.
I feel like if I've taken you on a journey and I've told you what the journey is, I told you that this is a story about a young girl and what she's going through. Mm-hmm. And we're going to find out, does she get the help that she needs? Does she get the justice she deserves? Mm-hmm. And I tell you that story and I get there and then I'm like, the end.
Right.
Now, it's like the end. But wait a minute.
Yeah.
So-and-so, let's talk about this bathroom scene.
Right.
And guess what? He's going to decide to be a serial killer. And everyone's like, what? Like, imagine it's like at a campfire or something. Right. He's going to be a serial killer. The end.
Yeah.
He's like, what? That's not a story? Are you kidding me?
Right.
That's what my issue is.
It's more of a don't watch this
ahead.
Series. It's more of a hey, check this out series.
It's just, that's kind of where I feel. I'm not out here trying to be like Netflix can't make the content that they want, because that's why Netflix exists. They exist like HBO to make the content that won't show up on other places, and I respect that. It's just more it's more of a blame that I put on the storytellers. Mm-hmm. Just tell us one story at a time, please. Like, especially, it's heavy. That was 2 seasons. Mm-hmm. That was 2 seasons of a story, and then they tried to tell another story in like 1.5 episodes,
right?
And expects us to feel the same way that we did for the other character. It's not gonna work.
Yeah, and season 3 is coming out next year.
And you know what's sad? I might watch it.
And I'm pretty sure I'm going to too, because again,
that's the sad. See, but that's the thing, and that's how they win.
They get you. Yeah.
And so and that's the funny thing. If we're gonna talk hypocrisy, we just trashed this thing for like an hour, and we're talking about how we might see season 3. What does that say about us?
Right.
No, seriously, that's a question. What does that say about us? Why do you think that? Why do you think that is?
Because I think we in a way that, again, I said it's kind of messed up. We get entertained by this drama, this unnecessary drama. And first of all, we love chaos, and chaos is so attractive because there's such a thrill. There's always something going on. Nobody wants to see like a normal, like nobody wants to watch like Degrassi anymore, because Degrassi is not dramatic enough. Let's keep the adrenaline pumping. It's like, oh man, because in a way, as much as we hate like that drama, we are attracted to it. That's just biology, because as humans, humans are destructive beings. And humans, it's much more easier to destroy than it is to fix. and
Or
we
create.
than to create. So we just
Mm.
like to see things. I mean, why do you think we love to see fireworks or explosions?
Hey, no. I would say fireworks, we like them for the colors.
Well, no, yeah, okay. Like, how about like even just like fire, explosions?
Okay.
Yeah, you watch demolition videos on YouTube, you get entertained by this.
Yeah, or if you're watching war movies or I would say the entertainment factor goes away a little bit the older you get because it really hits you how sad these things are.
Right.
It's not so it's not so much that I get a kick out of it. I definitely did not get a kick out of the suicide scenes. I did not get a kick out of that broomstick scene at all. I think the reasoning is more, are they going to make this good? Or
Right.
can they change? Can they make it worth it? And I think it's that little tiny bit of hope that I like hold on to.
Right.
Like just maybe season 3 will be okay.
Right. Exactly.
But if those first 2 episodes are like full of this stuff that I've been complaining about, I don't think I'm going to be able to finish it.
Right. Yeah.
But if I get a sense that, and I'm sure they've heard, the reception and stuff like that, I don't know where it's going to go.
Right.
But it's interesting. And I, like I said, there is a little bit of hypocrisy, but there is always a bit of hypocrisy when it comes to entertainment. There's always this sort of dance that we do between what we hate and what we allow and what we, it's really interesting. So the funny part is like, even as critics, right? Like we'll say something is trash.
Right.
But it's not really. We're just saying that because we're mad at it.
Right.
But then we sit and we talk about it for an hour, and it's like, I guess there were some parts I liked.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's really interesting. So in conclusion, what do you say about the show at large? What does it mean to you? What is is it worth it? Would you encourage other people to watch it? Like, what do you think?
Well, I would say definitely I would first advise people if you're dealing with these issues, I would say do not watch it at all because it will definitely have a negative influence, regardless. I know that for a fact, you may not intentionally see it in a negative way, but your mind is going to.
You're just going to start ruminating on things you don't need to.
Exactly. But I think it's very important. We need to talk about this problem more because, you hear a lot of people say, oh, I don't have any sympathy for people who kill themselves. Or I don't feel bad for them at all. They just want attention and stuff like that. And
I also do want to clarify, I might have, but I don't remember if I did, but I want to clarify that the character of Hannah, if we're just talking about purely on a character standpoint, I did have all the empathy for her, even though I felt like she was making wrong choices or that the tapes wasn't a good idea. I still had empathy for her.
I did too. Because again, it's just that, what's the root of the problem here? And it's because, people say, we don't take suicide, seriously. Like I said, this is why we need to take suicide seriously, because where does it stem from? And that stems from those type of people, bad people, bad actions. So you're not just being aware. It's not about being aware so much of suicide, but it's being aware of what causes it. What leads to that.
and I think what they were trying to get across, which I feel like, because we were talking about guilt, because I think they leaned too hard on the guilt, they missed the important part. And I think what they were trying to show with all the various characters is that we all have different ways that we interact with these people, like suicidal people specifically. So if you're a predator, you might be the direct cause.
Right.
If you're a mean boyfriend or girlfriend, you might be contributing to their declining mental health. If you're a mother who's not paying attention, how are you going to know if she needs, professional help? The counselor, he had moments where he's like, I don't know if I really listened,
Right.
It's not what, the focus should not have been on guilt, but as a real takeaway, though, to take is for us to remember that everyone is going through something and we don't know what that is. And sometimes what they're dealing with might be way more dire than we think it is.
Right.
So be kind to people.
Right.
You know, I think that's really what the overall message should be, but I think it gets lost in all the other stuff. But it's really simply be kind and be aware, you know, and don't be afraid to stand up for somebody or ask questions or maybe see if they need some help, you know, as opposed to focusing on whose fault is it.
Right.
You know, where can the help come from?
And what's important, because I also wanted to touch this, is that, you know, when I was watching this, and I think also like us younger people need to take this into mind too. One thing that I hated the most about this series is the parents.
Okay.
I hate the parents so much because statistically, most of the people that commit suicide or commit mass murders, a lot of it involves divided households, emotionally divided households.
Well, and the other thing is divided households is such a big part of society in general.
Exactly. So, like, when I was watching the show, I was telling myself, and I said, if I have a child, I don't want my child to go through that. I want to know what is going on with my child. I want to talk to my child. You know, I want to be involved, like not too involved, like, you know, be everywhere, but at least just talk to my child.
To the point where they don't want to talk to you no more.
Right, exactly. Because there was none of that in this movie. It was just more like, oh, leave the door open, or how was school, honey, or like you're grounded.
No, yeah, exactly. There was a lot of obliviousness.
Right. And I was just like, how stupid can this be? Because I feel like when suicide or issues like this happen, I think the people that should pay attention to it the most are parents. Because parents need to figure out, you know, when someone kills themselves, the question shouldn't be why? Why did this happen? The question should be, how do we prevent this from happening again? How can we avoid a situation like this to help that person? Because the person needs help. Like, forget about the depression part. This person seriously has mental issues. That's not normal. That's not normal.
Well, yeah, well, but then also, but the problem is, right, what is normal? You know, because everyone has a various area. But I think what you're trying to say is that, that when someone gets to the point when they are seriously thinking about hurting themselves, it's when it's gone past simple clinical depression.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that it's gone to the next level. You know, we all know that people with depression sometimes, right, sometimes we get the thoughts of doing something like that. But once someone is hanging out there on a limb, ready to hurt themselves, we've reached a different point where they need a different kind of help.
Right.
And so I think that's what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but like one thing, because like I know we gotta wrap it up. Pretty sure some of our viewers are gonna be like, "Come on, what's the next thing?" The one thing I also want to cover is that, I mean, it's still on that same topic. I noticed I have a friend. He's from Europe. He's
Okay.
He was telling me about. He noticed there's a big, huge issue with. I mean, of course, with European culture and American culture. And he was telling me that, you know, here in America, we take things for granted and we don't take things seriously as we should.
Okay.
You know, like he said in Europe is they take mental health seriously because, well, one, the study of psychology comes from Europe. Like modern day psychology, what we know stems from Europe. They took it seriously first.
Gotcha.
So Europe was ahead of the game many times. I guess England, they abolished slavery 100 years before America did.
Mm-hmm.
So they were ahead of things, like making progression. Like they were ahead of America.
Yeah.
And which is why a lot of Europeans today, they look down on us, because in Europe, first thing they say is they're like, "Oh, you guys are too puritanic," or like, "You guys are stuck in the past. You're not making much progress."
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that progress has to do with solving these issues, because here in America, we accept the issue. You know, people say like, "Oh, it's how it is. This is life."
Right. I see what you're saying.
Right, that's just how it is. And my friend, you know, he said, like, "Why do you guys have this ideology? Like, why?" Like, why is that? And I just said, honestly, man, I really don't know. And he was just telling me, he said, that's why you guys got all these issues. You guys are so messed up. You're so lazy to fix problems. You just accept them.
I think it's because it's the complicated issue of there's so many issues that we haven't even covered yet on how to understand people. Like you said, mental health and all of that is still underrepresented. You were making progress, but it's still, lacking a lot.
Slow.
Just that in and of itself, if you don't even know enough about mental illness just to have like a certain level of sympathy just for the general idea of it, you're definitely not going to be there, you're not going to be seeing eye to eye with like suicide survivors and stuff, because it's not even going to make sense to you, because it's not on your radar, because no one talked to you about that stuff. So I think, yes, there is a bit where people get lazy, but there's also a lot of people who are just uninformed.
Right.
And that lack of information also leads to lack of compassion.
Right.
So it's a mixture. There are definitely people who are just like, you know what, F it, I don't care. And then there are some people who are just like, honestly, I don't know. They won't say that, but they talk out of ignorance or they act out of ignorance. And there's a mix. There's a mix of stuff going on. And the thing is, also, if you're dealing with nations that have a bit of a 100-year head start or whatever, it can be a little bit hard to sometimes understand how another country might be lagging behind.
Yeah, it is definitely a touchy subject, and I think in a positive and a negative way too. But I felt like 13 Reasons Why, it brought back a discussion temporarily. It did. I just think we need more of that. There were more negative responses.
I agree.
It was more of a negative response. Like people say they were mad about it. They don't like that. Well, you're not exactly. You're supposed to be mad about it. I believe this show.
I feel you.
I believe this show was supposed to, like, again, that suicide scene when she slit her wrist. That's probably the most uncomfortable scene I have ever seen in any TV show or movie, because that looks so real. You hear the skin, it's just, that looks so real. That is just so realistic. Yeah. And some people think when you slit your wrist, it's just this quick slit and you just bleed out. No, that was painful right there.
That was ugly.
That was awful.
It was straight up ugly. And it's meant to be ugly because, to be fair, I knew but didn't know. So when I saw that, I was like, oh, wow, this is something.
Right.
I have like I said, I have my opinions on how it should have been handled, but I will say this, when I saw that, whoo, man.
Yeah, that was a big one. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Don. This was a
man, thanks for having me.
Really great topic, and hopefully people, after listening to this, they'll talk about it in the comments section. I'm watching you guys. I'm watching you guys for those negative comments, okay? You guys say some nasty things, I'm going to get rid of your comments.
You know what? It's like, I ain't got to keep this on here. I'm deleting you.
Exactly. It's just like,
I don't need to be reading this every day.
Exactly. Like some people say, I hate reading the comments section for my videos. They keep saying this. I'm like, man, delete it. You don't need that negativity. It's the delete
Seriously.
button. Goodness gracious.
It's your YouTube page.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, perfect. Yeah, man. It's good talking about this stuff. Hopefully we can talk about something else in the future. But this is fun.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I'll have you come on another time soon to discuss another interesting topic. Hopefully
Wonderful.
Something less sad than this.
Well, I feel like we made a good time out of it anyway. Yeah. So
and
thanks a lot.
You know what's the messed up part about this?
What?
I think I'm gonna watch an episode of season 2.
Oh, man, I'll leave you to that. I'll leave you to that. Yeah. All right, then. I'll talk to you later.
All right. So that's it, everybody. May the live long and prosper. May the force be with you.
Perfect. I just stopped.